50% of our kids come to us with congenital disabilities, so disabilities that they were born with, and oftentimes that by itself is a result of, lack of access to clean water, lack of access to prenatal care, including vitamins that, is a standard for many women in developed countries, to traumatic accidents. We have one child who's been with our program now for the past 10 years named Seha, who was playing outside when she fell. She cut her leg on a rusty oil barrel, and her parents didn't have the basic antibiotic ointment needed to prevent a small cut from becoming a really dangerous infection. And that's exactly what happened. And it became so bad that the only course of action to save her life was to amputate her leg. And even after that, for years, her parents still could not afford even, the first prosthetic leg that she needed to walk, let alone the many that she would need as she grew. So these are traumatic accidents that in many parts of the world you would deem preventable, that are simply not, because the families just don't have access to care, either literal physical access or can't afford it.
What is driving the growth of a leg to stand on?
There are three main drivers, and each of them are really dependent on the other. The first is, of course, our program model. We've spent a lot of time developing a model that will ensure that we're able to provide the quality of care that we deem as excellence to every single child served. And of course, that goes hand in hand with identifying the right program partners, so clinics or NGOs or hospitals on the ground that we need to execute our mission. Our director of programs, AJ Warko, has literally traveled throughout the world to identify and to personally vet a lot of these program partners. And the amount of time that we've spent developing what is success for a program partnership, I think is evident in the growth that you've seen and our ability to kind of fast track the onboarding process for the newest program partners that we've had the past couple of years and counting. We're adding 2 new program partners focused on providing appropriately fitted wheelchairs for children in the next 6 to 8 months, which is exciting. The second thing, of course, is funding. We are an NGO, which means that 100% of the funds that we need to run our programs come from the generosity of the public, whether they are individuals or private foundations or corporations. And of course, as Ray knows, and you as well, John, Rocktoberfest is a big driver behind that. 2 years ago, we reached the $1 million mark. This year, we're on track to reach $1.2 million between our events in New York and Chicago. And again, the musicians, the sponsors, the attendees, and the volunteers that make this event happen directly impact the reach that we're able to have the following year. As importantly, the third factor is our team. As some people know, but many do not know, we are a very lean team of only 5 employees. And our team runs from, AJ, who's our director of programs, who's been with us since 2010, right after the earthquake struck Port-au-Prince, where we had been working for many years, to Beth Ann, who's our director of operations now for the past 12 years, to Hannah, who heads up all of our marketing and communications now for over 8 years, to our newest employee, Ellie, who supports with everything admin and development for the past year. Their loyalty is a testament not only to the passion that they have for the work that they do, but to the impact that they've seen a leg to stand on have on a daily basis. And, the unique skills that they bring to the organization have brought us to where we are today and going.
What is the impact on so many kids meant to you?
One of my favorite quotes, and I think it's really relevant to this, is by Henry Miller. He said, what are we here for if not to leave this planet healthier than we found it? And so I feel really grateful to be able to play a small role in making sure that kids everywhere have the opportunity not only to help themselves, but to help their families and to one day be able to serve their communities and to make a profound impact. And every single person that supports a Leg to Stand On, or as we call it, every member of the Leg to Stand On family is a part of that and is driving that change. Mobility, we say, is a human right because it's the most fundamental tool needed to break the cycle of poverty. It is the difference between a child literally being able to physically access school and not, or being able to secure gainful employment when they reach adulthood, or beg for money on the street. And again, have the dignity that comes with living self-sufficiently, with being able to mobilize independently. And we've seen it with some of our oldest patients who've been with us, for 10, 15, now even some of them 20 years, who, had not been able to attend school by the time they were 8 or 9 years old because they couldn't physically get there, who are now high school, even college graduates, working as entrepreneurs, working as doctors, working as or studying to become lawyers, which is the case of that child that I mentioned earlier, Seha. I mean, the first in her family to graduate from high school, certainly the first to strive to become a lawyer. To our youngest patients, we recently saw a little kid named Awat who was crossing the street to buy cookies when he was hit by a car who kept going. His parents were, of course, devastated by the fact that he lost his leg in that accident, but they were worried that he'd never be able to start kindergarten. And he's in kindergarten now. I'm a mom of two now. My older son just entered kindergarten, and I see the difference that it makes to be able to not just go to school, but to be able to socialize, right? To play with friends, to do the little things that are really the big things that every kid should be able to do. I guess gratitude would be the short answer to your question.
What has Rocktoberfest and ALTSO meant to you as a musician?
It's been just amazing. We say that we change the lives of the kids that we help, but definitely changed me as a person, and many of the musicians that I know that we've brought into ALTSO. And as I said, when we first started, well, I first got involved in 2008. It was very selfish. I was like, oh, this is great. I can get on the stage and be a rock star. And I had no idea of what the real impact was of using music to raise money to help kids. ALTSO is an organization that, like Gabby said, is very small, 5 people. Almost everybody we help is outside the US. And so most charities that I think people are used to donating to are US based, et cetera, et cetera. But what was really cool was we were able to use music to connect with all types of people around the world and all different types of companies, from companies like Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley to Apple, et cetera, who all had the same empathy and were sympathetic to the cause of these young kids, as Gabby was just describing, who had really nothing. So as a musician, to be able to get on stage and perform, that's amazing. But able to be able to do it and to really make a difference in someone's lives. I was able 2 years ago to Bali and visit one of our clinics, and to actually meet these kids that we've helped, and to go to the clinics, and everything's free for these kids. It's amazing. But just to think, like Gabby was saying, we're going to raise 1.2 million this year, all through music. It's just incredible as a musician to use that kind of power. You think to things like, We Are the World and Live Aid and stuff like that, which raised hundreds of millions of dollars. Hopefully someday we'll do that. But it's just incredible that we find all these like-minded people from Wall Street and other areas that are musicians, that love music and that love the cause.
How is the fundraising different from before the pandemic?
Again, gratitude for so many of us, especially those of us living in developed countries. I think for the first time we were forced to kind of confront what it feels like to have your mobility compromised, right? Literally not being able to leave your home, and that's the reality for over 100 million kids throughout the world who don't have access to mobility care. So a greater level of appreciation for that. The fact that so many of our programs had to shut down due to government mandates meant that children who were scheduled to go in either for their first, prosthetic leg fitting, or for a repair to a prosthetic foot, or to one of their custom, wheelchairs, were not able to do that. And that was adding another level of devastation to really challenging, to say the least, time. And then once things, once restrictions loosened up a little bit, the fact that, we had so many program, directors or technicians who were willing to go into the clinic and to compromise their own health to ensure that they could treat the children that were scheduled for treatment, spoke volumes. And so I think, all of us on the ALTSO team side had a greater level of respect and appreciation for the dedication of our teams on the ground. And from a fundraising perspective, our biggest challenge, of course, like so many organizations, was how to replicate the in-person events that fuels the majority of our program budget for the following year, as I mentioned earlier. A leg to stand on events, hopefully John and Ray both agree. You've been to many of them, have a very special feel, right? There is an energy that is palpable. There's a sense of camaraderie that is I think really unique to events like Rocktoberfest or Rock for ALTSO. And so we were worried that we would not be able to emulate that in a virtual setting. But true to form, the ALTSO family showed up for 2 years of virtual Rocktoberfest. We had over 20 bands who submitted recordings on their own. We had supporters from our production teams to corporate sponsors who essentially covered the entire cost of the virtual production to make sure that we could still produce the event at the level that we strive for when we do it in person. And I think that spoke, again, volumes to the dedication of our supporters across the board. And how has it changed post-pandemic since returning to an in-person setting? I think we've scaled back the number of in-person events that we've hosted in order to make sure that every event that we do ask people to come together for, is operating at the highest potential level, where we're able to give the greatest possible experience to all of our attendees, and that will also have the greatest impact for the cool kids that we serve.
What are some of the other fundraisers for ALTSO?
We do these Rock for ALTSO events, which are smaller events. We actually just did one back in May at Space in Evanston, where we brought together a number of the bands that normally play Rocktoberfest in Chicago and a few new bands, which was great. And one of the things that's cool about that is we can bring in new blood because, as Gabby was saying, it's so hard to raise money to perform. So that if you're playing a smaller venue and a smaller, dollar amount you have to raise, it brings in new people who might not have come in the past because the ticket price maybe was too high for them or whatever reason. But so we do those little events, and then we do all these Move for ALTSO events where we walk, we run, we bike ride, we play tennis, we do all kinds of things like that. I don't know what would be the craziest one that we've ever done, Gabby.
I think the craziest one might be one that was led by a great supporter of ours called Ben Kilner, who reached out to us a few months ago to start a campaign that he called C2C for charity. So essentially, he designed and built a canoe that maneuvers both in water and on land with wheels. And he set a goal of traveling the entire width of Scotland, so from the Atlantic Ocean to the North Sea and then back, which is about 150 miles, to raise funds to help 5 kids was his initial goal. And by the end of it, and he did succeed, with his 150-mile loop around Scotland, he had raised enough to help over 20 kids.
What is happening at this year's Rocktoberfests?
New York is coming up fast. It's next Thursday, October 16th at the Hard Rock Cafe. We have an incredible lineup of 5 bands on the main stage. They have raised a record amount between $100,000 to $200,000 per band, to have the greatest impact on a leg to stand on's mission. Simultaneously, we have 6 bands performing in the acoustic room that have also gone above and beyond, not just to compete for the best time slot, but again, to have the biggest impact on the mission. So we expect about 1,500 guests this year. We have a record number of, I think, over 35 corporate sponsors from some of the leading financial services institutions in the world, who are backing the event. And it's just a really special and unique way to rock for good, as we say.
For Chicago, John, we're back at the House of Blues. It'll be our second year in a row, at House of Blues. It's a great space. I don't know if you've been there recently, but it's a perfect setup for networking, for having little cubby holes where you can go and talk to people on the sidelines. We've got an incredible acoustic room. The stage is just fantastic. It really allows the bands to feel like rock stars. We've got five, I think it's five bands, right, Gabby, for the main stage. August Sun. We've got a band from the CME, Blue Sky Highway, Hive of Scum and Villainy. I don't know where they came up with that name. Matt Sharp is performing with his band, the Bad Dads. And then Kurt from ADM with the Operators. That's all on the main stage. And there's a number of different bands. The Mix of Fours is one of the bands that I play with Steve Sanders from WGN is in the acoustic room. Our band is called ALTSO All Stars. We put this together about maybe 10 plus years ago because I always bring people from all different bands that I know and play with around the world and put together something unique. This year we have I don't know if you've heard of a band called we have the American Breed. We're doing some songs from the American Breed, but the Buckingham's horn section is playing with us, and we're doing a bunch of soul and funky music. We've got some dancers. It's going to be really cool, and the food is always great. The drinks are great. The service is great. The people are great, and as Gabby said, the sponsors. I think we have over 20 sponsors for Chicago. Some of the biggest names, CME, CBOE, OCC. It's going to be great. And it's a real Chicago event. It feels Chicago and it rocks, and there's blues and there's country and there's all that kind of stuff, all for the best cause, which is for the cool kids.